Lori McIntosh, and I'm here with Cindy Gustafson. And you are currently our District 5 County Supervisor, right?
That's correct.
And we're talking Newcastle all the way to North Tahoe, right?
That's right. Nevada state line to Newcastle. Quite
Okay.
an area.
Yes, but you don't help out the Incline Village people, just Kings Beach right there.
Just Kings Beach, right.
Okay, so now that I just brought that up, there's been controversy about you living in Tahoe and how you're focused there. But I don't sense that at all. I feel like you're down here all the time. You are a huge advocate for, still I consider us East Placer, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe that's just social media saying stuff, but what do you think about that? The fact
You
that you
know,
live there.
exactly. I think I'm blessed that I've gotten to live there 42 years. But I love the foothills and the job is here. The majority of the people are here. So that's why I'm here all the time. And I've fallen in love with this park and many other places in our canyons and our foothill communities. I think so many of us move to this part of Placer County because we do love the outdoors and recreation, whether it's all the way up to the High Sierra for skiing or if it's down here for trails and riding and, you know, enjoying the rivers. So
Yeah.
I think we're all trying to find our piece of balanced life. That is why we're here.
Absolutely. So I will tell you, I did live in the Bay Area and Morgan Hill, which was like the tail end of Silicon Valley, and it was
Right.
very agricultural focused. And I've been there recently. I haven't lived there in 7 years. I've been in Auburn, and it turned into like a mini Los Gatos or a Santana Row. It's like that whole hometown feel, agricultural feel is absolutely gone. And I worry about that happening here. We were priced out anyway because we have horses, and we needed a place where you could live where there's a lot of water. And I'm telling you, we thought about going south, like not like Watsonville, but even further south, San Luis Obispo County. But it's so dry there and there's no water.
Right.
And then we both love to ski, snowboard, and we thought, well, let's check out Auburn. And I did the Tevis Cup, so I'd already been familiar with doing that 100-mile race from Truckee
Yeah.
to Auburn. And the Sierras are here. This is where all the water is. So that's why we're here. And of course, outdoor enthusiast. So I love the fact that that's something that is a priority for you, because I think a lot of people, not just from the Bay Area, but just Sacramento, in fact, come up here. By the way, I'm a realtor, and a lot of people want that rural lifestyle and they want the Auburn Recreation District in their life. And it's pretty intense, some of these trails for mountain bikers, hikers, and equestrians. They're not easy trails to ride. So I just feel like they are super important for people that want to move here. But then how do you balance living here and having this space? I love Placer Land Trust, by the way, but how do you balance that with housing issues that the government has implemented, that they need more affordable housing? And then the topography here. How does that fit in? Because it's an unusual place to live
Yeah.
with the canyon, the foothills, and the Sierras right here.
Right. And I think, do you mind taking the camera and just looking across and seeing how beautiful some of these areas are in our foothill communities? I think it's so critical that we focus development where it should happen. And obviously this is not a place, and that's why the county's preserved thousands of acres here for Hidden Falls, and we keep looking to expand it. That hasn't been without controversy, as we were talking about earlier, that there are many people that aren't sure about having a park as a neighbor either. Yet that is one way governments can preserve in perpetuity open space and not have that pressure of new development coming in, because often the larger parcels, when the family members receive it through an estate, have to find a way to market it. They try to subdivide it. And so that's when we can jump in and either acquire it, or Placer Land Trust, or through the Placer Legacy program, we can work with property owners, and they can get a tax benefit, and we can expand our parks and open space. But how do we Where do we put housing that the state's requiring us? I hope it's all in infill projects in already urbanized areas so that we can preserve this lifestyle, especially the agricultural lands that I think people really love, like you're talking about, that you saw disappear in those other areas. So that's critical, I think, to preserving our quality of life.
Yeah, and that reminds me of sustainability.
Right.
So we have the Placer Wine and Ale Festival that just happened last weekend was amazing. I
It
thought
was. I
it,
didn't get to sample any, but I walked through. It was
I'm so
packed.
sorry. It
Yeah.
was. And it's a great way to merge downtown and Old Town. That's a whole nother issue. But we're doing great with that because we have
Yes.
the Auburn Quail Trail. And that is a huge factor just to help people realize that there's a downtown, because right off 80 you see Old Town. But and then you have those trails right there. But back to sustainability, the Placer wine growers, no, what is it called? Placer grown. And then they have a wine division and they have beer. But I keep thinking, what about like bees? What about olives? Having olive oil, just really expanding more and getting more sustainable things, or having people not necessarily live off the grid, but have the ability to live here and grow their own food, maybe study a little permaculture. Like I just started a whole fruit orchard, and I can't.
That's amazing. That's
Yes,
great.
apples, pears, pomegranates. We have olives, figs, Persian mulberries, and citrus. And that way, if I could grow more, I can also donate more. And it would be great if because food is so expensive now too.
Well, and I don't know if you heard about this sustainable agricultural grant that we just got, the SELC grant. It's $500,000 to study what do we need to do to sustain agriculture. And part of that is the experiences. People want to come and pick and learn about agriculture, not just buy. They want to have an experience with it. So I know the vintners and the breweries, as well as some of our growers and others, are participating in that to really try to make agriculture more sustainable here, so that we can preserve that way of life. And I think we all want to eat healthier and better foods. We realize the food that's closest to home, and we've got such a variety right here in our county. I mean, I was at the Mandarin Hills orchard the other night, and I was hearing about how that had been peaches and pears. And there was a blight, I think in the 1950s, that took out all the trees. But two of the mandarins had survived. So then they planted all the mandarins. But obviously the climate was right for peaches and pears. And as the climate changes, it might be right again. And that issue of that blight may not be a factor anymore. So I think all of these efforts, we need to really get people like you and others to sit down with us and let's brainstorm. How can we help people protect this great county?
Absolutely. I love that. I had no idea about that sustainable legacy program, right?
Sustainable agriculture, and I'm forgetting what the other two letters stand for, but it's called the SELC, S-A-L-C grant. And Gloria Stearns, our economic development director, researched and found it and helped apply for it. The Vintners Association, Jocelyn Maddox, was instrumental in it and has been a champion for we've got to find ways for people to have a great life here in Placer County without having to develop their land and overdevelop it. So
yes, and that you just reminded me of something. When I drive through Tahoe, I like to go up 20 to avoid 80.
Yes.
And I see these signs everywhere that say no spray, only in Nevada County. And I would love that to happen here.
Let's work on it. Yeah, I think that would be great.
Yes, because I will say I complained to the rangers for Hidden Falls about noticing that all the trails here were sprayed. And then my horses would try to eat the grass. And I don't want you to eat glyphosate or whatever herbicide that they're using. So I didn't see it again. I feel like they listened, and or maybe I just didn't pay attention, or I went at the wrong time. But I was thinking, did I make a point there?
I think everybody can make those points, and I know our staff are always learning best practices. So if there's
Mm-hmm.
alternatives to spraying, I think they would want to hear about that and consider it. Like
Yeah,
so many things, people just keep doing what they've always done until they learn better. And
right. Tradition is hard to break
right.
sometimes, and yeah, I'm the only neighbor off of Lone Star on the east side that has a sign that says "Organic Farm, do not spray." The only one.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy. I didn't know that because we have so many at our foothill farmers markets that are organic, but maybe they're further out.
Right, they
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
Like out
Further
on
down.
Wise
Yeah.
Road over
Mm-hmm.
there. Yeah, so it's a goal that I have. And then what else I want to talk to you about, Cindy? How about defensible space? One of my favorite topics. So I brought in Rotary, and I brought a friend whose husband is an ex-fireman,
Mm-hmm.
and they have a business where they help remove your dead debris, your shrubs, anything that's going to cause a potential
Right.
fire hazard. And it's not like basic landscaping. He's hardcore. He brings an excavator in, and I have 5 beautiful oak trees on my property, and one has a branch that's touching the ground. And so we all know, maybe we don't, that you need to clear everything 10 feet
Right.
to the ground for tree wise.
Right.
And
Because you don't want what they call ladder fuels,
right,
low things that will catch the trees on fire and go to the crowns, and then the winds will spread the embers.
right. And
So
the
if
embers are our biggest issue.
right, so if they can keep the fires low and manageable, they can fight them. So that's the whole
Yeah.
idea of defensible space, and also some of our forest fuels projects too. You know
Yes,
this.
I do. Well,
You know it better than I do, probably.
you know, something that's sad is I invited 65 neighbors. I put flyers on our mailboxes. I put them flyers in little bags, dropped them off at their gates, because a lot of people, you can't just walk up to their door being in a rural community. And only 3 people showed up at my talk, with defensible space guy Scott, who spoke about how to clear your property and the importance of it. And then I had Cordy from Placer County, who teaches people how to do a controlled burn,
Oh,
which is
wow.
like a whole nother topic.
Yes.
But controlled burns are super important in the wintertime to get rid of your debris. Now, I know that like permaculture, you want to spread it around. Like this trail has pine needles and dead leaves, but on your own property, if it's not your garden, you should clear it, because
Right.
it's such a huge risk. And a couple things that he told me that we should do is put a sign at your gate or at your house and say, we have a water tank that's 500 gallons.
Yes.
Feel free to use it.
Right.
So, because the firemen, if they're coming up and they need to figure out where to get water, and you have a sign stating that you have it, that is huge. And
Right.
I have a pond, I have a pool, whatever water source you have, document it and let them see it on a sign.
So they know it's there. Well, I remember during the mosquito fire, I was out on site with some of our firefighters, and I actually went to a site where they were standing to protect the home. And they left a note for the homeowner, because the homeowner had done their defensible space, and they said, "Thank you." The firefighters were saying, "Thank you. And because of your efforts, we were able to save your home." And so it was just so heartwarming to see how proud these firefighters were to stand
Yeah.
and excuse us.
Yeah.
And they were able to stand and protect that home because the homeowners had done their work. So I think it's really important for people to understand it gives the firefighters a chance to protect their homes.
Yes. What's a way that we can let everybody know that they need to do that? Or, okay, here's another example. Your average baby boomer refinanced their house for less than 3% in the past couple of years. And they have a big property, they need to downsize, but they can't because they have a great
Yeah.
mortgage rate right now, or they haven't been able to pay it off yet. They have a few more years to go. And they're elderly, so they can't do that defensible space. So I have this goal of just trying to let all the other neighbors know that there's people out there that could use your help if you have the ability to do so.
Right.
but maybe Placer
And I
County
think,
can help too.
right. And I do think that's something that we've been struggling a bit with. We did a pilot program for people that are low income or disabled. And we went through all those funds immediately. And we would grant up to $5,000 for a homeowner or a resident to get their work done. And we would pay the contractor to do the work for them. And that was a great program. I'd love to see us put more money into that program. One of the things we're struggling with is we'd like to see that then honored at a higher level by the insurance companies. So if you've done all this work, can't you save money on your insurance premium? That would be fantastic.
Yes. So
And it would give us a reason to spend public dollars to help people on their private properties. But the fire safe councils and the fire wise communities can really put people together with those resources. We can get help for them to get rid of their debris and make it more cost effective. If you work with all your neighbors and use those resources, that's a great way to make it more affordable for everybody. And those that are less able, then there's more able-bodied people maybe there that can help, or you can bring in staff support. But we're working on more programs like that because we know it's essential. People can't afford their fire insurance.
No, they can't. And I just saw some stats this morning actually that the houses, there aren't a lot. I think there were 71 houses in Auburn that were over $2 million in the past 3 years. And the people that can afford that price range can afford the insurance. It's the people that are in the 400 minimum to 800,000
Right.
that really struggle to add that onto their mortgage.
Right.
Which I have 5 acres of irrigated pasture, and our insurance is outrageous. And I have 3 water sources that are big.
Right.
And it's like, what? How is this happening? But
well, it broke my heart. We have 2 grandsons and they live in Grass Valley, and they're in a tiny little house on a really busy street. And they told me, no, even with your help, we can't buy something else because we won't be able to afford $500 or $600 a month in fire insurance. And that's what they calculate. It might be $6,000 or $7,000 a year to move out onto some property where they'd have room to spread. So that's why, it's so critical to me. It hits home when you see, I can afford, and I've been non-renewed a couple times. I can afford that because I'm still working, my husband's still working, and we're doing okay. But I look at our young people or our seniors on fixed incomes. They can't afford that. Once I'm retired, would I be able to afford a jump like that in insurance? So we've got to find answers.
Right. And California Fair Plan is state owned, but it has to work with all these counties.
Right.
And they're difficult to reach. And the rumor is that if you do call them out and say, look at all the work I've done, they'll go, oh, that's great, but you have that shed there, that's a problem. And so they'll point out something that you have no ability to fix, and they'll raise it anyway. And so people are petrified of calling them to show them what they've done to try to get that lower rate. And I think that's one thing that happened to me is why people didn't come over to hear these talks about just basic education.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Well,
sad.
I think if we could give people hope, they'll do the right thing and they'll invest. Just where do you invest? If your insurance is going to $6,000 a year and it's going to cost you $30,000 to re-roof your house or to do some of the other home hardening, what is your incentive? I mean, you can't afford to do both.
Right. I would love a metal roof.
Yeah.
But I just can't imagine.
Right. Right.
Yeah, they last 50 years. But will I be there for those 50 years?
Yeah.
Will it increase the value of my home? Will it protect my home? There's so many questions. And then it's way down our list, right?
Right.
It's the last thing you want to put a ton of money into. It's a roof.
Right.
If you don't have to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a challenge. And I'm searching for more programs and more opportunities. Can we find money to allow for low interest loans to help people? Similar to some of the programs we've had in the past on energy efficiency for homes, tax credits. What other tools?
A battery for your solar.
Right.
When the power goes out.
Right.
You used to be able to get those and then they stopped.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
there's a lot of challenges, but when you walk out here and you look at what we get to live around, you think, well, I want to keep finding a way.
yes.
We want to
I just
help
had
solve these problems.
I had someone do the reverse. They moved from Texas to here. They're like, we don't want to deal with the bugs, the humidity, and all the horrible storms.
Yeah.
And they moved to Lincoln. So they're super happy, which people think that's crazy, but they're like, we want to pay more taxes
Yeah.
just to avoid that. Yeah.
Well, it is. There's definitely, whatever the cause of climate change, we all know it has changed.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at this past summer, we can all debate why it happened or why is it happening. Is it just nature changing or is it human caused? People want to debate that issue. I'm just a realist that it is happening. And these catastrophic wildfires didn't used to happen when I moved to California, right? So now it's here. What are we going to do? And some of the storms that they're having, in hailstorms and things in the Midwest, are wrecking homeowners insurance
They're
policies
intense,
too. Yes.
really intense. Not your average like 20-minute or 10-minute storm. They just
Right.
battering people's homes.
Oh, I'm some of the, grapefruit size, softball size hail. It's amazing you think about that falling from the sky. So, anyway,
Yeah. Well, there's a fun topic I want to talk about, and that's
okay.
horses.
Horses. Okay.
What do you think about having horses, obviously in Hidden Falls, but any other places? I know there's Pines to Mines where they're working on going up along Highway 20, uh, Lone Grave, Skillman, all the way to Truckee, and
Oh,
just expanding
wow.
those trails. And love to have
Going
more.
all the way over the summit. Oh
Hmm.
my gosh, how great would that be?
And you think, people that do have horses, you have to have a good income to have them because they're very expensive. Like I don't have kids, so I don't even know how people have both. But they people that trailer in here with their horses, they have to go eat sometimes. They want to stop at a brewery and have one beer, just one, before they go home. They need to spend some money. They have to get gas. They
Mhm.
might stop at the store. Like I ride over to Cool and I'll go to Holiday Market
Yeah.
sometimes on my way home. So they bring income in, and I think there's a huge advantage. Plus, when I'm out here in Hidden Falls and I see kids from Sacramento, their eyes just light up when they see the horse,
Yeah.
and I just give them that time to pet them and hang out with them
Right.
for a little bit.
Well, I think expanding equestrian opportunities is part of that lifestyle, right? That we've been talking about, and learning to share the use of our trails. That's probably been an issue you've run into, where you have hikers and bikers and equestrians, and how do we make that work? Um, we all need to learn to get along and share
Hmm.
resources. You think about what we were taught in kindergarten and how we share with each other, and sometimes trail users there can be conflicts there. But what we're doing with the new entrance to Hidden Falls is focused on more equestrian opportunity, and looking at how we can expand our trail network to allow you know, equestrians to use more of the areas. And I love the idea of that connection all the way up to the summit. That would be
Hmm.
incredible.
Yeah.
So let me know how we can help.
Well, I mean, I know there's a lot of issues with the e-bikes. I'm an
Mm,
e-bike owner, and the advantage of them is you can be older, you could have like a slight injury, and you could go further than you ever imagined. I could ride this whole park in an hour and a half on my e-bike, but if I'm on a regular bike, I'd probably just be out for half an hour and just go home and pass out because it's
it's
intense.
steep.
It's up
Yeah,
and
yeah.
down. And so I love that for all ages, but I just want, and I know there's controversy with the e-bikes because bikers generally don't like horses because they poop, and it is grass. I just want to clarify that it's just grass. Within a couple of days is not a big deal,
Yeah.
but and it's scary because when you have a head-on collision, there's usually a bad injury, so you just have to be aware. And I just hope that when e-bikers come into Tahoe and on the trails, because they were classified as non-motorized,
Hmm.
I've been on plenty of trails with motors, with I guess they're dirt bikes, super respectful. As soon as they see me, they pull over and turn their engine off. Like they're just amazing people. Mountain bikers, not the same situation. I don't know
And
why.
And I
But
think that's education, right? I
mm-hmm.
think so much of it is educating and trail etiquette so people learn to share. Um, I don't think they're all that way. My
Yeah.
husband and I ride e-bikes now, or I do. He's refused yet, although he's tried
See,
mine and he likes it.
he'll
Um,
switch.
he'll switch. But as I ride, I always am aware that even just with other bikers or hikers, you can get going too fast, just like driving, and there can be an accident. So slow down. I mean, the whole reason to be out here is to enjoy the scenery and the atmosphere.
Right.
And that aggression, maybe there should be specific trails just for kind of those high thrill seeker
Right.
trail riders versus what we're doing on a multi-use trail. And
Right.
really mark those trails. You know, what can we do to better educate and sign so people understand you're sharing this?
Yeah, so we have signs here with the name of trails, for example, but we don't have signs where, like a triangle, who has right away,
Who has right away? Yeah.
which the hiker always gives, the mountain biker is the least important because they're the most dangerous, and then the hiker, and then the horse because you're on an unpredictable 1,000-pound beast. And
Yeah.
technically, we
Mm-hmm.
don't have 100% control of them, no matter how much training you do. They're prey animals, but
Right.
all it is communication and saying, hi, I'm a mountain biker, because they're hunched over, so they look like predators when they're on
Right.
their bike. That's the only thing.
Right.
And a lot of women, I think, that are riding, they're older and they're fearful and they act angry, but they're just afraid.
Right.
But yeah, so maybe I can contact
Our parks department. Let's
yeah.
talk. Maybe we should sit down with the various user groups and see if we can come up with some signage and some education programs. You know, right at the kiosk when you come in, and then when you get off and you start down these trails, this trail is a multi-use trail.
Right. People may not even know.
Right.
Or they're coming up from Sacramento. I think
And if you haven't ridden a horse,
yeah, you don't know.
maybe they don't understand what, like you just explained to me something I didn't know, that of course it might look like a predator if you're hunched over and you're going fast, and the animal might be startled. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. See, you have answers for everything.
well, I have not answers, but processes, like how do
Right.
we work together? And I do find that when we sit down together and share those concerns with some of the cyclists and some of the equestrians, that they might find, and they might come up with their own answers, right? As to
Mm-hmm.
how to do that, how to best educate and get that out to the community members.
Right. And so for you, when you are mountain biking with your husband, where do you like to go? What's your favorite place?
You know, we often, time is a limit for us right now.
Home.
We're both working, so we typically stay closer to home. And just up behind where we live is Burton Creek State Park, and that's 2,000 acres of trails up behind North Tahoe High School, just by Dollar Point, if you're familiar with that area.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's lots of trails right there that we're able to ride and go enjoy and get outside. And we see a lot of different people, dogs, you know, walkers. We don't have as many equestrians up there. Every once in a while you'll see equestrians, but primarily hikers, bikers, dog walkers.
Nice. So, and you're way more of a wildlife corridor than I am here in Auburn. I mean, we have mountain lion issues, and of course, the smaller predators, foxes, raccoons, deer everywhere, of course, and skunks, bobcats, rattlesnakes. And I feel like wildlife, we have there's a master plan for the county, which I think is amazing. And then a lot of us use the canals as a trail from NID and PCWA, which they're very neutral in the use of those. And but I do have a concern about the wildlife and having them have the access to what they need and what they and being able to, I guess, live amongst us with the growth that we have, but have that ability to get where they need to go.
And have people understand what they're going to be encountering, right?
Yeah.
Because leaving food out or having food in your vehicle. We deal with more the bears, raccoons. We do have some mountain lion, but far more the bears, and people not understanding how to coexist with bears and leaving food in their vehicles or around their homes and not locking the door and having visitors.
Yeah.
So I think the same thing here is how we educate people on how to work and respect the wildlife and keep some of the areas closed off from maybe some of the trails and human interaction so that the wildlife have safe refuge from us. But when you look at the canyons and the steep terrain, there's a lot of areas in our canyons that are safe refuge.
Yes, I know. And in the neighborhoods, I feel, for example, you've actually been helping me and your staff with some of my neighbors in Christian Valley and in my neighborhood with people putting up barbed wire fencing.
Yes.
Which the last thing we want to see is a doe caught in that fencing. And I totally understand barbed wire is great for cattle, which is also my neighborhood, but at the very far end. But I don't feel like it's necessary to have it everywhere or, in a place in a corridor where humans are walking along a path.
Right.
And I really appreciate the help we're getting with Fish and Wildlife, Fish and Game, I guess, to help us.
Fish and Wildlife.
Thanks.
You're right.
Fish and Wildlife to eradicate barbed wire in areas where there's no cattle.
I am so happy about that program because, again, a lot of barbed wire is legacy, right? It's been out there for decades and decades, and people have used it. And when you do come across those encounters where a doe or a fawn get caught, and it's tragic, right? So we know better. We should do better with our fencing.
Yes. And then maybe when you do move up here and you have this rural lifestyle, like I'm looking out there and I don't see a ton of fencing, and there's a lot of private properties, but I would just love it if people would let those that have access to trails to leave them open and not block off their property. I have an easement. I could totally put up 2 gates and block all my neighbors from coming down that path. But I actually appreciate them coming by because they could help me if there was a problem. If I was getting robbed, which would never happen, hopefully, because I live so far out.
Yeah.
Or there was a fire, or I had an animal that was injured and I wasn't home. Just something that it's like them watching out for each other, like a neighborhood watch. But if they're completely blocked from going by my house, there's no one that can see anything. And I also just love the fact that people are able to get out. Like during COVID, I met a couple elderly people that had cancer and could not interact with anyone. And they had this trail of peace and quiet where they could just walk down and not have to walk on the streets of their neighborhood.
That's so great. And they felt safe because they weren't interacting closely with people.
Right. So they told me their issues, so I kept my distance, but it was just so nice that they had that ability to do that.
Yeah.
And I brought that up because if people do watch this, I'd love for them to not put up fencings. Unless they have livestock. That's okay. Yeah. Oh, do we have any more people? No. So what else can we talk about? That we talked about trails, parks, wildlife,
housing, going in infill spots versus spreading out.
Yes, love that.
Yeah,
defensible space is huge. Water rights.
Yes,
I know that's changing just because of climate change and having to adapt to our PCWA, which is Placer County Water Agency, and then NID, which comes down through Placer County, Nevada Irrigation District, which is what we buy our water from, which is huge.
And we're blessed in Placer County. If you've looked at our long-range sustainable groundwater models, and we are very blessed in the county that we have water into the future. And we need to keep it that way and not overdevelop and overtax the system. Make sure that we can continue a healthy pace of growth. You need some amount of growth, but let's not outpace our resources. Right. And I think that's what we've been talking about, balancing that development with keeping areas like this open and using resources from those other areas to help protect larger swaths of public land.
Yeah, and that's again the reason why we're here is because of that water access and the land that we have access to that we can recreate on and have fun. And I hope people that do live nearby here that are neighbors just understand how important it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I lived in the city. I've had people block my driveway. I lived across from Golden Gate Park and I couldn't go into my own driveway.
Oh my gosh.
I lived at a beach where people would come and throw their trash in our driveway. I mean, I've dealt with it and I totally understand where they're coming from. And it's I think the benefit outweighs the risk of what they have to deal with people coming here from outside areas to enjoy the park.
Exactly. I've just seen so many wonderful families and people using this park. And since we've had the reservation system and we've shut it down during red flag warning days, people have been so respectful of understanding the danger that we can't accept that kind of danger because there are homes surrounding this park. If a fire starts here because of an accident, because of a spark or a trailer or wheel hitting a rock up there in the parking lot, we can't take that chance. So people have been super respectful of that. And I think it's so important that we continue to educate, right? Why is the park closed? Well, it's high fire danger.
Right. They're like, oh, it's not that hot, but it's, you know, high winds,
windy and dry.
And very dry. Right. Yep. Yeah. I think we covered a lot.
We did.
All my topics.
I don't know that I had as many answers as I'd like to have, but I think the great thing about a county like ours is we find those answers from people like yourself, from all of us putting our heads together with our learned experiences, what works, what doesn't work. And we don't have the answers, to give you. It's, you all helping us find the answers and then shepherding it through.
It sounds like that's your passion.
It is.
Describe what you love to do.
Absolutely. It's believing that the real answers are with the people and the common knowledge that we share together.
And it's kind of amazing how you have evolved into this position, and you want to continue it on. And you've done a lot of previous careers too, right? Were you a realtor too?
I was a realtor for a short period of time in the early 1980s when there was quite a
when it was like 16%.
Yes, when it wasn't a very good time to be in real estate. But I also ran rentals and did, I wasn't just selling real estate. My broker had some long-term and vacation rentals, and so I helped with that in the early 1980s. And then I did 26 years. I worked for Tahoe City Public Utility District, and my job there was to help projects get through and also raise the money for the projects. So I got to work on a lot of sorry, we're going to get out of the way of the biker and be courteous here.
He's rocking out.
He is rocking out.
80s music. I feel like we should dance.
Yeah. Hi.
As long as they could hear a horse coming.
Yeah.
That's all I care about.
Yeah. And so I had that career before. And then when I retired, I thought I would go to work for our Resort Association Chamber of Commerce, because it was a lower key, less responsibility job in a lot of ways. In water and sewer, I was dealing with people's life and safety, and it was time. I had great people under me that needed the opportunity to grow. So I retired, I went to work for the chamber, and then this job came up, and I really did feel like it was the right time and right place for me to give back even more to the broader area, because I'd always given back to the community of Tahoe, but now I get to give more to the whole region.
And you get to hang out in the dome.
I do, in the Placer County.
How old is that building, by the way?
Since the 60s, right? I don't know. I should know the year, but I don't.
Oh, sorry, I had to throw that in there.
Yeah.
It's a pretty funny looking building.
It is.
And it's impossible to figure out where the entrance is. You just walk around the whole circle.
That's true.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate you. We got a 2-for-1 deal. Got a nice walk out in nature. If you are trying to get your exercise in for the day, you did it.
Yes.
And you got to share all your thoughts about what's really important to me. And the people that I tend to hang out with are outdoor fanatics, and especially all my horsey friends. They'll just love to hear all this. And of course, bikers and hikers too.
Yeah.
Because that's one big reason why I think a lot of people live here.
Absolutely. I mean, you're not forced to live here.
No.
You choose to live here. It's not always the easiest place to live, as we've been talking about. But the joy you get from being on the land and recreating and the freedom, we have to treasure that and keep fighting for it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you just need to find my husband a job here so he doesn't have to go to the Bay Area.
Okay.
We need some tech companies, maybe a little like Intel and Folsom needs to stop laying off people. How's that?
Oh my gosh. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, we're working on it down in Roseville. You know, they've got Bosch coming. And so we have a lot of opportunities at the west end of the county where we can still enjoy our life here.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.